General Hospital spoilers for the next 2 weeks, April 21st to May 2nd tease that Alexis never imagined she would find herself pushed to such limits. Once a sharp lawyer, a woman of intellect, justice, and honor, now, all of that has become secondary. She no longer cares about her career, the judgments of others, or the moral standards that once guided her to live honorably. Everything has been swept away by the fear of losing Christina. To outsiders, Alexis may still appear calm, composed, even cold. But inside, she is a raging storm, a constant whirlwind, shattering any remnants of peace. Because she knows, and only she knows, that Christina's world is under threat. And it's no longer some vague danger. No. It's Ava, the one smart enough, and cruel enough to use the truth like a sharp knife, slicing deep into the fears and wounds of others. Ava has found a way to blackmail Christina. She doesn't want money. She doesn't want status. What she wants is power, control, and a revenge meticulously plotted like a cruel game. Ava knows exactly where Christina is weak, where she is wounded, and how to slowly suffocate her psychologically. And this drives Alexis mad. She feels powerless, as if she's standing on the sidelines of an accident, watching the car plunge into the abyss, unable to do anything to stop it. But that's only part of the truth. Because what Alexis truly fears is that her own past is slowly resurfacing. An accident she's tried to hide. A moment of mistake pushed deep into the recesses of her memory, and now, it's pulling itself to the surface. Alexis caused an accident, and she knows that it can't stay hidden forever. The guilt has been eating away at her mind day by day. It lurks in every sleep, in every glance from Christina, in every whispered word in the dead of night. At first, Alexis thought she could face everything, stay silent for the sake of everyone's well-being. But no, when Christina becomes the target, when her innocence and trust are dragged through the mud of blackmail, all logic becomes meaningless. Alexis can't keep the secret any longer. She knows that confessing will bring consequences. Loved ones will be disappointed. Enemies will attack. She could lose everything, her job, her credibility, even Christina's trust. But Alexis is ready to trade it all. Because the one thing she cannot accept is seeing her daughter fall because of her own guilt. However, just as Alexis decides to step into the light, another, darker truth begins to emerge. The accident wasn't just a lone mistake. It involves other forces, people who are also lurking, waiting for Alexis to slip up so they can land a devastating blow. And the worst part is, Ava might know. Or at least, someone is helping her get close to that secret. Alexis is now surrounded by two nightmares. One is protecting her daughter from the invisible claws of crime, and the other is confronting the monster within her own mind. Every time she closes her eyes, she hears the sound of wheels grinding on the pavement, metal clashing. Someone's cries for help fading into silence, and Christina's sobs as Ava traps her in fear. She knows that this isn't over. Her confession is just the spark that could ignite a chain reaction, destroying everything. But Alexis has no choice. She can't run. She can't keep pretending. She's a mother. And for that love, she will walk to the gallows if it means keeping Christina safe. And when all secrets are revealed, when the light shines into every dark corner of the past, poor Charles will witness the fall of an icon. And the painful rise of a mother who knows that nothing is more important than her daughter. Nothing at all. Willow stands at a fateful crossroads, a place where no matter which path she chooses, destruction follows. In a time when it seems like she can trust no one, she secretly turns to Jason, a man known for his loyalty, silence, and action. Willow doesn't say everything, but her eyes speak the plea. She needs a hand to pull her out of the deep hole she's falling into, and Jason, as always, doesn't hesitate. But this decision, asking Jason for help, sets off a chain of events that Willow never expected. On the other side of her life, Drew feels betrayed in the most brutal way. He can't believe that Willow, the woman he thought would build a peaceful life with him, would bypass him and secretly bring Jason into it without saying a word. Drew doesn't just feel excluded. He feels like everything he's tried to build is falling apart bit by bit. A simmering, nameless anger begins to grow within him. A sense of disappointment, pain, and helplessness as he cannot control what's happening. And that anger is no longer just a personal emotion, it's a clear sign of a new disaster approaching. Willow never meant to hurt Drew. But she's caught between duty, guilt, and fear. She's unsure whether she still deserves Drew's trust, especially when she knows that Jason is the person Drew trusted most. The one he considered a brother. Now, that person has become the one to replace him in Willow's eyes. And that is unforgivable. The shift in their relationship is no small matter. This is no longer a misunderstanding or a conflict that can be resolved with a hug or an apology. This is a serious break in trust, a turning point that could permanently tear Willow and Drew apart. And it's getting further out of control. Drew isn't speaking much. But his every action, every glance now shows that he's truly angry. An anger that even he is trying to suppress. Because if he lets it out, everything could be destroyed. He's lost too much, family, freedom, and his faith in himself. And now, Willow might be the next thing he loses. Meanwhile, Willow feels like she's standing between two worlds. On one side is Jason, symbolizing action, solutions, and unconditional protection. On the other is Drew, the one who once gave her hope, love, and a peaceful future. Now, she doesn't know how to keep both. And the scariest thing is, she might lose both at the same time. With every passing day, the tension between them becomes clearer. The hurt, the doubt, and the quiet pain are like layers of cuts piling up. There are no more gentle words, no more conversations to heal. There are only cold stares, deadly silences, and a future clouded by uncertainty. The question now isn't just who Willow will choose, but whether there's anything that can save her relationship with Drew. Because if not, this disaster won't just be their problem, it will pull many others into the tidal wave about to rise in Port Charles. And when everything shatters, no one can predict where the consequences will lead. Cody never imagined that his life would fall into such a precarious situation. Once a man who was always proud of his health, endurance, and ability to overcome adversity, he now lies motionless, surrounded by cold machines and the endless whispers of doctors' concerns. The medical disaster he faces is not just an illness. It is a silent sentence. One that could take not only his health but also his future, dreams, and the budding hope he had begun to build with Sasha. But while Cody fights physical pain and the uncertainty of tomorrow, Sasha is fighting an internal storm. She cannot tell the truth, because if she does, everything will collapse. But keeping it hidden won't fix anything. The price she paid for temporary financial stability was a crazy deal with Sidwell, the most powerful and scheming man Port Charles has ever known. $250,000, a figure that might seem desirable. But to Sasha, it is a double-edged sword. On one hand, it gives her a sense of control, an immediate solution to her financial chaos. On the other hand, it strips her of her honor, dignity, and the trust she had spent years rebuilding after all she had gone through. From a victim of addiction, a widow, a mother who lost her child, Sasha has now become a woman who is selling herself to power just to survive. She thought Jason wouldn't know. She thought she could hide it, bury it in a dark corner of her mind, and go on as if it had never happened. But Jason is not someone who can be easily deceived. When Jason finds out the truth, it is when his heart is squeezed by the deepest betrayal. He had trusted Sasha. He once saw her as a symbol of strength, someone who could rise again after being knocked down countless times. But now, before him, there is only a broken, weak Sasha who is ready to make deals with the enemy in exchange for a momentary peace. That, Jason cannot bear. His anger does not explode in words but smolders in his gaze, in every cold gesture. He doesn't need to shout. Jason just needs to look Sasha in the eyes, and she understands. Everything has changed. But Jason's fury is not just from disappointment. It is also from fear that Cody, who is lying unconscious in the hospital, may never wake up to know what has happened. And if Cody never wakes up, will there be anyone left for Sasha to apologize to? Will anyone forgive her? Or will she carry this burden alone, silently, for the rest of her life? Sasha begins to fall apart from within. She can no longer sleep. Nightmares come like raging waves. Where Jason turns his back, Cody never opens his eyes again. And Sidwell laughs ominously in the shadows. She knows she's wrong. But she also doesn't know where to turn. Every step she takes now is built on a minefield, ready to explode. Meanwhile, Jason is not just angry with Sasha. He is angry with himself. He is angry for not seeing it sooner. Angry for putting too much trust in someone who was too weak to stand firm. But most of all, he is angry because he feels helpless. Jason is a man of action, but this time, he can do nothing to change the truth. Cody remains unconscious. Sasha is still bound by her deal. And Sidwell is still free, silently pulling the strings of the people Jason holds most dear. A new, crazy storm is forming, a storm that is not just the result of a single mistake but the chain reaction of wrong choices, of moments of weakness that anyone could fall into. But in Port Charles, every mistake must be paid for. And this time, the price could be a friendship, a love, a life, or all of those things at once. Everyone thought Sasha had moved past her past. But the past doesn't forgive anyone. It lurks, waiting for the smallest moment of weakness to pull someone back into hell. And Sasha has taken a step back, right when Cody needed her most. What will Jason do? Forgive? Or let go? Help? Or turn his back? Will he be able to move past his anger to save those he once called family? Port Charles is peaceful like a lake before a storm. But beneath the surface, the whirlpools are starting to stir, and when they explode, no one will remain unscathed. Joe's true identity has finally been revealed, and the truth has triggered an emotional earthquake not only within Brooklyn but also throughout Port Charles, leaving a chain of wreckage that is slowly spiraling out of control. Every secret she tried to hide, every lie she tried to wrap in love and kindness, every moment she thought silence was protecting, is now coming back to tear her apart, each slice deeper and more painful than she could imagine. Because that truth is not just information. It is the line between trust and betrayal, the end of a relationship once thought unbreakable, the moment when Brooklyn must face the reality. She has lost everything. Chase does not scream. He does not cry. But in his eyes is a void so cold it's terrifying. It's not the anger of someone hurt by lies, but the look of someone who has lost the most precious thing he ever had, trust. Chase once loved Brooklyn with everything he had, generosity, understanding, and the willingness to forgive her messy past. But now, Brooklyn's silence is the sharpest knife. Joe's true identity, whether by mistake, coercion, or just fear, has erased everything they had built together. In Chase's heart, love is no longer a foundation. It has become a chaotic mess of hurt, doubt, and mistrust. Brooklyn stands there, completely shattered. She has no justification strong enough to erase the sense of betrayal hanging in the air. She can only remain silent. Swallow her guilt, and feel her heart shattering with every beat. She wants to run to Chase, take his hand, tell him that it was all because she was afraid. Afraid of losing Gio. Afraid that if the truth came out, everyone would take Gio away from her. But those words are too late now. They are the key to a door that has slammed shut in her face, and behind that door, Chase is walking away, step by step, without looking back. In Brooklyn's heart now is a symphony of madness made of guilt, regret, pain, and a bitter awareness. She chose to keep the secret, thinking she could bear it all on her own. But that only made everything explode. And now, she stands in the ruins of her own making, knowing that the only thing left is a child still looking at her with an innocent, trusting gaze. Gio doesn't understand what is happening. But he is the one who bears the biggest consequence of the collapse the adults have caused. Port Charles was never peaceful, but after this shock, it has become a maze of rumors, prying glances, and underhanded schemes starting to unfold. Some are starting to question Brooke Lynn's custody of Gio. There are people, secretly like Sidwell, or more openly, using this scandal to fan the flames of a new fire, trying to drag the Quartermaine family into a wider political and legal crisis. Joe's true identity could be the key to a fortune of power or the gateway to a tragedy that spans generations. And Brooke Lynn, though unintentionally, has placed her entire family, herself, and Chase at the center of the storm. As for Chase, he doesn't disappear, but he's no longer the man he once was. He no longer places his hand on Brooke Lynn's shoulder to comfort her. He no longer looks at Gio with hopeful eyes for a complete family. Chase is now wrestling with questions in his mind. Is love still enough to forgive such a deep betrayal? Or should everything just end here to prevent further harm? Because he knows, if they continue, this wound will never heal. Brooke Lynn still loves Chase. Strongly. So much. But she also understands that loving someone doesn't mean they will forgive. It doesn't mean she will be accepted. It doesn't mean every mistake can be undone with tears or regret. Some things, once broken, will never heal, even if they still love each other. And amidst all this, Gio remains at the center of the earthquake. The boy, innocent, sweet, carrying all the hopes that Brooke Lynn and Chase once placed on their future, is now the child living between two hearts that are falling apart. He doesn't know who he is in anyone's eyes anymore. Is he a son, an adopted child, someone to be protected? Or is he the cause of all the destruction unfolding? No one has the answer right now. All we know is that Port Charles has changed since that night, since the day the truth could no longer be hidden. Since the moment Brooke Lynn looked in the mirror and no longer recognized the woman staring back at her. Something has died inside her. Maybe it was trust. Maybe hope. Or maybe it was her very heart, when she realized it had all gone too far. And there's no guarantee that they'll ever find each other again. No guarantee that everything will be okay. All there are consequences, and a madness that is silently spreading, day by day, hour by hour, among the people who once loved each other with all their hearts. The tension between Trina and Kai is escalating steadily. No longer just vague feelings or fleeting moments of suffocation, it has turned into a heavy atmosphere that blankets their entire relationship. Every look, every gesture between them now carries suspicion, unhealed wounds, and growing doubts. Kai is no longer the confident man he once was, and Trina can't hide the anxiety that's eating away at her mind. Each day that passes, they stand like two people at opposite ends of a battlefield, silently watching each other but lacking the courage to step towards one another. One of the biggest changes, and the root cause of the crisis, is that Kai is secretly working with Drew to secure funding for his surgery. This is not just about money, it's a decision filled with moral contradictions. Kai has always insisted that he didn't want his burden to become anyone else's problem, that he could handle things on his own, but quietly. He chose a different path, a path that made Trina feel excluded from the real life he was living. Trina can't accept the silence, because what she needs is not meaningless reassurances, but genuine trust from the man she loves. The changes in Kai are becoming more evident. It's not just his physical weakness. Not just the way his gaze has become more contemplative or the times he avoids discussing the future with Trina, it's the growing coldness. He no longer shares as he used to. No longer makes her feel like a partner. While Trina is trying to understand, trying to step into Kai's mind, he is becoming more closed off, building invisible walls that she can't get through. The strong connection they once shared has now turned into a series of missed opportunities, untold stories. Kai keeps the source of the funding from Drew a secret. Even though he knows Drew is not a man to be trusted, even though he understands that any financial support from Drew comes with strings attached, Kai chooses this path as if he's in desperation. grabbing at any rope that could save him. But what Kai doesn't realize is that with every step he takes in this darkness, he is pushing Trina further away. She doesn't want to be an outsider. She doesn't want to stand on the sidelines of a battle she could fight alongside him, if only she were allowed in. But Kai has not let her in. Deep inside, Trina begins to grapple with a new fear, the fear that this love is no longer strong enough to withstand the storm. She starts questioning whether they truly understand each other. Whether all the promises and hopes for a shared future are still real or just a dream too beautiful to come true. The shift in Kai, the way he avoids conversation, the way he chooses solitary solutions over trust, is creating a silent distance that neither of them can break. That relationship, which was once full of warmth, is now a cold void. Where love is just an echo and trust is as fragile as a spider's web about to snap. Port Charles keeps turning, but for Trina, everything seems to slow down. She feels lost in her own life. In the very man she once trusted completely. The meetings now feel brief, the smiles no longer truly reaching her heart. Trina tells herself that if only Kai would open up. If only he would show her that she is still the most important person to him, everything could change. But that day hasn't come. Meanwhile, Kai is still caught up in his own calculations. With Drew lurking in the shadows, ready to pull him into a dangerous spiral worse than anything he's faced before. Kai believes he can hold on to his moral compass, that the money is just a tool. That he is still himself. But the deeper he falls, the more he loses the part of himself that Trina once loved. And though he doesn't realize it, each wrong decision he makes is contributing to a larger emotional disaster that's unfolding right before their eyes. There are no explosions, no obvious breaking points, just silence, avoidance. And a series of long nights where they lie next to each other but are no longer truly together. And at the heart of it all is a big question that neither of them dares to answer. Can this relationship still be saved, or has everything truly slipped through their fingers forever? Jordan and Isaiah are reaching the end of a relationship once nurtured with hope, understanding, and silent forgiveness. But now, everything they once tried to build is falling apart, layer by layer, because of a name that is becoming a shared nightmare in Port Charles, Sidwell. The cracks didn't appear overnight. They've been building slowly, from sharp conversations, long silences between them, to the gradual absence of the warm gazes they once shared. Isaiah started holding his thoughts in, and Jordan began to feel that she was no longer part of the man's mind. But the hardest blow, the shock that sent everything completely off course, came when Jordan realized that everything was tied to Sidwell, and because of him, she was losing the man she loved. Sidwell wasn't just a frightening figure in the political and legal world. He was a silent force, a manipulator, and most frighteningly, someone who had wormed his way into the lives of people who seemed untouchable. When his name started appearing in reports, in suspicious cases Jordan was investigating, she tried to keep her distance so that Isaiah wouldn't be pulled in. But Isaiah, in trying to stay uninvolved, felt increasingly pushed out of everything. And the distance between them began from that very moment, from Jordan trying to protect him by pushing him away. Jordan didn't want to break up. Deep down, she still tried to hold on. Still clung to whatever was left. But the more she tried, the more the tension built. Isaiah saw in Jordan's eyes a plea, but he also saw excuses, hesitation, and cracks that she couldn't fix just with apologies. She wasn't wrong for trying to keep him away from the dangers connected to Sidwell, but in not facing things together. In not letting him enter the storm with her, she made Isaiah feel like she no longer trusted him. Their relationship began to melt from the inside, like a dying candle. Jordan knew this. And in desperation, she started doing something she had never done before, holding on without reason. She started seeking Isaiah more, calling him more, sending messages she had once thought useless. She hoped that if she could just meet him one more time, explain herself a little more, he would understand, that she didn't want to push him away. She just didn't want to lose him because of risks she couldn't control. But the harsh truth is, it was that very clinging that was killing whatever was left between them. Isaiah no longer saw Jordan as the strong, decisive, independent woman he once loved. He saw a Jordan who was confused, lost, and letting her emotions drive her in desperation. And that only pushed him further away. Their love story, once a symbol of healing, of a couple who knew how to overcome past wounds to love again, was now becoming a new narrative, one where no one could tell who was right or wrong. Only that two people who once loved each other were now being torn apart by a third party who didn't influence them with emotion, but with power, lies, and manipulation. Jordan, in the end, had to face the inevitable, the end. Not because the love was gone, but because she couldn't hold on to the trust. She couldn't stop Sidwell from infiltrating her world. And she couldn't bring Isaiah back when he had chosen his own path. That relationship, like a song left unfinished, ended in a silent choke. And inside Jordan, everything still burned, love, regret, and a pain that she didn't know when it would ever stop.